All right, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Gabe Yanez and I, we are on for our weekly episode. We are in person today at my home office / recording studio, if you're watching us on camera.
Yeah, man. It's always nice to be in person. It's so different. It's completely different.
It is. So I picked up Gabe, and now here we are. We're going to record it. I have a specific topic to discuss. Well, we have a bunch of stuff. So you did a Hyrox, which we got to talk about. I did an open workout. But, and then we should probably talk about the app. We should talk about how nights should not impact your days. But I got a story for you. So we talk about train, protect, provide a lot, right? And we talk about this idea of, you never know when your skills might get tested. So I was at Jiu-Jitsu and a guy told me a story. And I want to ask, for the listeners, they're going to think one part of this story is very odd. So one of my buddies, he's telling me that he's at Santana Row, which is where you're actually staying while you're here. And he's at this bar. And so he walks into the restroom and there's a guy in there that's like a little bit drunk, kind of like whatever. So he already kind of, I don't know, he already like put him on the radar, right? So my buddy is using the urinal and he puts one hand up against the wall while he's using the urinal. Most guys don't put their hand up against the wall, right? Is that like a faux pas? That's like not allowed?
Yeah, you probably shouldn't touch anything but like yourself while you're in the urinal.
So this guy, so he's telling the story. He's like, yeah, dude, so there's this drunk guy and I just happen to be using the urinal and I have my hand up against the wall, which he even admits I don't normally do, but it seemed right at that point. I'm like, okay, whatever. So he goes, and so I'm using the restroom and all of a sudden out of nowhere, I get slammed into the urinal. And luckily, because he had his hand up, which I don't know if it's like a self-defense thing to talk about, because he had his hand up on the wall, he didn't like get too crazy. So immediately, imagine if this happens to you. You're using a urinal and you're just trying to like relieve, and then boom, you get slammed into the urinal. So he's like, dude, I immediately try to like get my pants up. So, imagine how awkward this is. He's like, I'm like fumbling around, whatever. I turn around, this is what the guy's telling me, and the guy pushes me like crazy again. So now this drunk guy and a guy who's pretty sober, or who's my friend, is like, they're in full like fight mode. I mean, what do you do, right? Like he just said this came out of nowhere. So he's still trying to like fumble around with his pants at that point. He gets pushed again. And then he realizes, okay, like I'm in a fight. So he basically arm drags this guy where you basically use your left arm and your right arm and you pull him across. And he gets him into a rear naked choke from behind. And he walks this guy out the restroom into the lobby area and security comes. And at that point, like his pants are like halfway down, whatever is going on. But the lesson there that we were talking about is like this idea that you never know when things can like pop off. And you just got to be prepared. And in particular, you got to be able to run, jump, climb, lift. I think that's the baseline. And then if you could learn some self-defense, that's good. But my buddy just told me this and I was like, oh, I got to tell Gabe on the podcast because who puts their hand there? But in this case, it ended up working out good for him.
I'm almost in disbelief that story happened. Also, Santana Row doesn't like come off as a place where like that would happen, dude, with someone that's drunk. But yeah, man. So I take it this is a friend that trains jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah, he trains jiu-jitsu. He was prepared. He was whatever. But we talk about this idea of like train, protect, provide, and at the cornerstone of it, again, I want to make sure I reiterate this 50,000 times. As a dad, as a husband, fitness is the number one factor. Like you need to be able to run, jump, climb, lift. However, if you have the available time, and I strongly encourage to get into a form of self-defense because something like this could happen. I mean, dude. How crazy is that though? He just told me this. So I thought I'd share it with you.
That's pretty insane. I do think that there's something to be said though about the, situational awareness that you need and just recognizing that someplace like a bar where you recognize that there are guys that are clearly intoxicated,
right,
is just like objectively somewhere where it's increasingly more likely, even though it's probably still unlikely, that something like that would happen.
Yeah.
Like as soon as alcohol is involved, as soon as you're in someplace like a bar, even if you notice, like you said, he noticed beforehand that there was a guy that like, was alone and was drinking, like all those things, even though this thing is still unlikely, it's just things that you should be aware do increase the likelihood that, there'll be something because, alcohol is involved. So, but that's funny. The hand on the wall is pretty funny. I don't think I've ever seen that?
I think I've seen it. I
mean, I guess if you're intoxicated and
yeah,
you're
you might be trying to
hold yourself up.
Maybe.
But
I just think now the next time I'm like at a public restroom, I'm going to think to myself, like, I'm going to try and like be on the head on a swivel. Anyways, random thing. But let's talk about Hyrox experience. I text you and I'm like, hey man, how did it go? Or I was watching some updates from our buddy Jay was putting it on his social media. And so I was watching some updates and I was watching.
No, let's talk about the first thing you texted me. Because the first thing you texted me was, I guess 103. And I was like, this motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, no, you were the one who said my goal is to beat our doubles time. Yeah. And so I'm thinking,
by the way, super aggressive.
Yeah. 106 was our 106, right?
107. So my thinking was, because I know that when we did it together, like the thing that slowed us down was the run.
For sure.
But I severely underestimated. And remember I sent you that screenshot because I was looking at our results the week prior. And dude, yes, we ran slow. We were running like an 8-minute mile pace, like not breaking anything.
I felt like I was running a 6-minute mile pace.
But dude, we went hard in the stations, like super hard. Like, we were very, very highly ranked for the stations. Now, granted,
didn't you say we were like in the top 1% of stations?
That was for the time. Yeah. So if you, at least what I saw, there's a ranking for all the stations put together. And for that, we were ranked super high because, we went hard. Like you were really good at moving the sled. For other things, I would come in and because I wasn't pushing as hard on the run, I would be able to just like balls to the wall. Cause I also knew that we would go back on the run and I would be able to like.
Oh yeah. We basically like cheated the system.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very unique race in that like I came in much better running shape than you, but you're very, very good at all of the station stuff. So we were kind of able to play to our strengths and it was a fun experience, but I think that I underestimated, and even now saying it's silly. I underestimated the level to which going out and doing exactly the same thing because it was the same weights, same station, same amount of work. It's like taking a partner workout for anyone that's CrossFit and then just like, how usually the individual version of the partner workout is like half the reps, half the work. Yeah. This is take the partner workout and do the whole thing yourself.
Yeah.
So that was something that I severely underestimated. Plus, and again, this isn't, and I hope it doesn't come off as an excuse. It's just kind of like where I am. Like when we did that race, I was like, it was in November when I was training for the marathon in January. And I was like, I would say, because it was right before I got hurt, like peak running. Yeah. Like my running was like at the highest level. And now since I got hurt in December. I haven't run basically at all December, January, February. Now the race was in March. I like 2 weeks have been running a little bit. So I also went in with like the expectations of how I felt last time we did it, but in significantly worse shape. So yeah, man. But I mean,
well, the Hyrox, just for, we've talked about Hyrox a little bit, or quite a bit on the show, but for those of you who are unfamiliar with what Hyrox is, it's, there's 10 stations. It's eight stations, 10 runs, right? Mm-hmm. 10 runs. Each run is 1,000.
No, eight stations, 8 runs.
8 station, 8 runs, 1,000-meter run each. And the stations range from like a row, a ski erg, to a sled pull and a sled push, which are both pretty heavy. There's some like farmers carries, some other stuff, but basically these Hyrox events, one of them was in Houston, the one that Gabe did, and they're on fire right now. Like the one that he went to had 9,000 competitors.
9,000 across 2 days. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. And we're looking to put one on the calendar for the Train Hard crew towards the end of the year. So I just wanted to kind of like level set that's what it is.
It's a fun event. It's fun because it gives you, I mean, we've talked about this in the past. I think having something on the calendar, something that's like anchoring your training, giving you something to build to. And it's nice too, because if you want to do well in something like that, you do have to train all the things that we acknowledge you have to be trained to be capable. Like you need aerobic conditioning, you need anaerobic, you have to be strong. Like all those things are kind of encapsulated in this event that will take any, like the pros are going like right about an hour to just under an hour, but it can take you up to like 90 minutes, even 2 hours. So it's like a very, I think, sweet spot thing to train for, because it's going to require you to work on more things than just signing up for a marathon, signing up for a half marathon, which again, I love. That's what I'm training for now again, but it's nice because it kind of incorporates all these things. And yes, CrossFit accomplishes that too, but I think what Hyrox has done a really good job is making it accessible from a skill standpoint.
Yeah.
Because if you want to say train to excel at the open and like a master's bracket, say next year, great goal, awesome. But you have to acknowledge that you're going to have to spend a lot of time working on skills like getting on your hands, handstand walking, ring muscle, like all this gymnastics, where the nice thing that they've done with these events is like, basically like the one thing, and I learned this the hard way, that is, I think, a skill you need to practice is the sled pull, especially if it's heavy for you, because then you can't just muscle it. But everything else,
well, and you didn't,
like,
I mean, dude, it's hard to get practice on that because the surface was pretty difficult. When we did it together, I'd say a good amount of that pull. So you didn't have as much exposure on that, right?
I would say for the pull specifically, because I definitely helped on the push, but for the pull specifically, I think you did, I would say 80 to 90% of it.
Yeah. So you're right though. There is definitely
tough to move.
Yeah. And there's a technique involved, and depending on like who you are, like, you know, for me, I got 15 pounds to move it so I could utilize leverage to lean back and pull. You know, you're lighter, so you have to be aware of like where your body's positioned in terms of that. So yeah, I would call that a skill.
Yeah. I mean, to sum up the experience overall, I think that it was a combination of like, I went in with unrealistic expectations, went in with zero experience because of how different the race was. Because you almost like, it was almost worse off that I did the pros doubles with you because you
had an expectation of like,
think you've done it before. You're like, oh, this is familiar, but it's so night and day, so night and day when you're doing it on your own. So I think that all that just kind of compounded to like, you know, I told you my time was 118, which again,
where does that rank? What does 118 rank you for your age group?
I don't know. I didn't even like spend that much time looking at the results because I was like, this is such a bummer. Like it's definitely not where I wanted to be. And I'm competitive. I'm similar to you in the respect that like, I'm not trying to sign up for something to go show up and get like a finisher's medal. Like I want to be, I'm not going to win, but I want to be like top 10%, top whatever, like in that like, top group running and whatever. And from the beginning, dude,
What, these people just booked it, huh?
I was just middle of the pack. And that to me is like, like I hope this doesn't come off like whatever, but I'm not a middle of the pack guy. I know that I have the fitness to not be that. So going through that race was also just like, you spend so much time thinking about like, and I think that the challenge for me was never letting the fact that I showed up at the fitness level that I was and whatever, ever let me just mail it in and consistently just like, all right, I'm here with the fitness level that I'm in. I'm here with the preparedness level that I'm in. I can either use that as a reason to just kind of like finish the race, or I can still go 100% given where I'm at. And I think I did that for the most part. I would say at the wall balls at the end, I was kind of just like so over it that I didn't push as much as I could have, but it was fun overall because the energy is so cool. And honestly, like now I have this time, definitely want to do one solo again, just like build off of. And I know the areas that need to be worked on, so on and so forth, but it was fun, man. And so many people that you see there, like this is something I wanted to bring up. Like it was interesting walking around an event like that without you.
Yeah.
Because in the past, like we'll get approached and it'll be, because people recognize you and it's like, oh, it's Jason and Gabe because they know that I'm part of the podcast. So it's cool to be there and get, a small handful of people, I would say probably less than 10, but more than 5, come up to me and me alone and say that they love the podcast, that they check it out, that, they love what we're doing. A couple guys were like, love what you and Jason are doing. So that was really cool because it's obviously a big get together of people that, share a lot of our values. So to get approached and know that people are listening to the show, are enjoying what we're doing, that alone was super cool. Yeah. And, I know you've gotten a lot of this over the years, but it was also super cool to get that like in front of my kids and Ariel, like, for them to like, see, like, hey.
Yeah, the work you're doing is making an impact.
For sure.
Yeah, that's probably something I take for granted. Like last night I was at an event and this woman's like, hey, like after we met her, she's like, hey, I'm just letting you know this, not to be weird or anything, but like, I knew who you were when I walked in here because, we're CrossFit people. And I was like, cool. Like, I think they feel weird about it and I feel like whatever, but it's just like it's more of a common thing just because I've been in CrossFit space for so long. But, I think that, what I haven't thought of until you just brought it up right now is like with me, whenever we're at airports or out and about, people are always like super cool, dude, like all good. But I never looked at it in a way where like people are acknowledging something because of the impact. I think that's going to hopefully happen more and more. I think what happened before is that people would recognize because of like CrossFit Games and like, that's cool. That's great. It's all good. But what I'd love to be recognized for, I'd love to have some people come up to me and just be like, dude, listen to the podcast, which we still have this. Listen to the podcast on the Train Hard app. Love what you're doing. Love the mission you're on. It's helped me become this. That in front of my kids, that's like the goal.
Super special. Super special. Super cool. So that I really appreciated. Got to see a bunch of people that I've met recently. I've gone up twice up to Austin because there's a group of like, guys that train there specifically for Hyrox. But I think the biggest takeaway in general is like, if this is something that I want to do and I do, and like I said, like I don't want to be a middle of the pack guy. I think that I can be better than that, is that I can't keep just, doing like pure hypertrophy bodybuilding training and like some conditioning and expect to show up, because it's gotten to the point where everyone that I'm trying to compete with, like this is what they're training for. Like their training is specifically designed to get better at these 8 stations combined with running for like a 1 hour half event. And that is going to be different than how I'm training now. So
it just depends what your goals are, right? Like if you're saying, hey, I want to try and place top 10% at Hyrox. Okay, that's cool. But you're gonna have to give up something, Like I was talking to Diego the other day. He's one of the guys at the men's club, and he's been training with me for 2 years, right? And he calls me. He's like, Jason, I think, I don't know what's happening. He's like, I don't know what's happening. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, I'm not getting the same, I'm not seeing my numbers improve. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, my deadlift is here, my this is this. And I think what people forget, man, is like, dude, he's been training hard for 2 years. He's seen incredible results. He went from like a 200-pound deadlift to a 500-pound deadlift, from a 100-pound back squat to a 300-pound back, whatever. All the things have gone the right direction. Physique has changed, everything. But after a couple of years, man, you can't expect all your numbers to always increase because your training age has gone up, and you have to pivot based on what your goals are. So like for you, for example, like you're probably not going to be a Hyrox world champion and also have a physique of a bodybuilder. Like I'm just using as an example, right? And I think just people need to be real about what goals are and how that might impact the way they look or the way they feel, the way they're doing things. Like if I want to dedicate myself to jiu-jitsu this year, well, maybe my physique actually might change a little bit, or just because of the time that you're spending on these things.
For sure. And, these things always vary depending on how long you've been training. Like Diego's a good example. In the beginning, you can 100% get better at the thing you're trying to get better at, see body composition change, see energy level, like everything is going to get better. But you're going to get to a point where you do have to like pick what's my priority? Because it's kind of like the 80-20 rule of it takes 20% effort to get 80% of the way there, and then 80% effort to get that last 20%. Once you get to that point, you have to realize that switch does go off. And now you're going to have to really focus on, okay, I want to add muscle. I want to improve my aerobic conditioning. All that being said, though, you can do all of those at the same time, but you can do all of those at the same time gradually.
Yeah.
Like if you follow TH Daily, that's the whole point. The whole point is there isn't anything that we ignore. There's full body strength, aerobic conditioning, anaerobic conditioning, but you're not doubling down on any specific thing,
right? Because
you need everything, right? And you just need to recognize like where you're at and what you want to prioritize. That's why we have Flex. That's why we have Hybrid. That's why we have TH Daily, because depending on, hey, I don't really have a priority, I just want to be as capable as possible. Great, TH Daily. Hey, I really do want to focus in this season of life on putting on muscle, body composition.
Yeah, like, Flex.
Great, do Flex.
Yeah. I mean, so speaking of which, because Gabe brought it up, the new app, right? Progress tracking, life-changing stuff. I mean, I think that probably the part that I'm most excited about is the ability for people to go on the app, see a variety of programs that could each help them achieve their physical goals, right? Like, and mental goals in some ways, because I think physical breeds into the mental, but the fact that you could have our TH Daily and follow a track that doesn't have necessarily progressive overload, but just gives you a great baseline. And you could watch your aesthetics by tracking your progress photos and your progress tracking. I think those things are going to be really game changers, including the videos, right? On all the movements, taking out the guesswork. I think those are going to be major factors to helping guys get the results they're looking for. And so I couldn't be more excited about it, because this episode probably goes out right when the app drops. The app drops March 31st.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be excited about the new app. I just sent out an email today because the Thursday email comes from me. And like, I'm so excited to also just like really double down on helping, our community with nutrition specifically. And the app is going to have our nutrition protocol built right in. There's video contents there. There's like recipe ideas. There's all sorts of stuff like again, eliminating the guesswork both on the fitness side and the nutrition side. But the other piece is like, I want to be very active in there as a place where like now you do have access to ask all of us questions. But like for me specifically, like I want to be the guy that everyone knows. If you have a nutrition question, if you're struggling with like, do I do this? Do I do that? Because there is so much noise out there. If there's something about our nutrition protocol that is confusing, like let me know. And that's a place to let me know that you can contact me directly, but also I think there's the added benefit of there's visibility for everyone because it's
well, there's the comment section there too, right? That you could under each video that you have in the new TH5, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So in there alone, I'm sure you're going to get comments and you're going to be able to answer them. And that's probably going to help these other, like to what you're saying, like if people have questions about nutrition, chances are if they go through those comment sections, they're probably going to be able to answer some of those already.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, the message that I put out in the email today, I don't know if you got a chance to see it yet, is a lot has changed for me with nutrition since having kids, in that like, I understand how hard it is to stay on the path once you and you alone is like the only thing you're focusing on. And you add to that these like, like very well understood, like science behind, like some people just have certain personality traits and certain levels of food drive that like just make it very difficult to stay on the path, specifically when we live in a world where there's super palatable and high calorie foods everywhere. Like if you're someone that has high food drive and low conscientiousness, so you're not like the most like super regimented person, you are going to struggle more with this stuff. And I think that that's where, like, for me, it's easy for me to sit here. And I know that in the past, I've been very like, you just have to do the work, because you do, it's true. Or, the way you look is a reflection of your habits. That is also true. All that being said, there's a spectrum of how easy it is and how difficult it is for certain people to do the right things. And if I'm going to be here and say, hey, like it's your responsibility to change something if you want to change it, I want to be as helpful as possible in that respect. Like, I don't want to just be like, hey, do better, do better, do better. I understand that it's a very noisy space. So whatever I can do to help people, whether that's holding them accountable, whether that's like stressing the importance of taking progress pictures, whether that's like, does paleo work? Does this work? Like, why should I do this? I've done this. It hasn't worked. Like, I want to help because it's counterproductive to just like, be the guy calling people out, but not be there as a resource. And that's, I think, something that I can do a lot better. And the app allows me to do that a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, we had a comment come in from Kyle, and he was saying that, we were talking about this on the last podcast, and he says, I think there's a difference between calling people out and calling people up. Like using like a pastor as an example, sometimes it sounds like calling out, but the difference lays in the motive and intention. Those do matter. There's no sense of calling out just to call out. That makes you a jerk. Calling out with the intention of calling up, there is value there. And I think that, as you get older, man, you realize like some things are not as simple as people think.
Nothing's as simple as you think.
No, it's not. And it's complicated. But at the end of the day, like, you want to be there for your kids. You want to be there to be able to protect and provide. And we are here to provide solutions to that problem. Just like other people might be there to provide solutions from a financial perspective, or you name the other problems, right? Everybody's got stuff going on. But I think the app is going to be a great place to ask questions, connect with like-minded people, see easy to digest workouts with videos, and then obviously track your progress, man. And I want to see the photos. I want to see the photos. I want to see the visible change in people that start using the app.
And it's going to be there, because there is no way that there isn't like a profound physical change if you do the very simple things that we outline, both in our nutrition protocol and that our training programs are founded on. Like, it's sure there'll be like some rare one of one, condition that like maybe limits, what kind of changes you can see, even if you're doing all the right things. I always feel like I need to caveat that I acknowledge that those exceptions exist. But for 99% of people, you focus on the basics, and it's not going to happen overnight, not going to happen in a week, might not even happen in a month, but you just stay on the path and do it consistently, not perfectly. And you will be like absolutely blown away when you go back and look at a picture 3 months ago of how much things change.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think those are the type of people, I mean, if you're listening to the podcast right now and you're like, man, I know a few friends who want to be on the path, but they're just right on the fringe. It's like, dude, send them our way, right? Send them to this episode, send them to our app, which you can check out the podcast show notes for all the details there. But the goal is to take people who are fired up, ready to train, and provide resources and tools to keep them training. And or right there, dude, they listen, they watch the newsletter, they're right there. They want to be they want to do it. Like, dude, just join our community, because there's gonna be people that are there to help. I think it's scary, man. Like, I was at a baseball game a couple days ago. I was running the snack shack. And this lady, she comes in and she was like very frantic. And she's like, I was opening the snack shack. She was supposed to run it. And she's from Ukraine. And she seemed very frantic, like, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do this? And I was like, okay, like we're good. Like, I got your back. Like, we'll figure this out. And as we start to get to know each other a little bit better, we start talking about culture and American culture versus Ukrainian culture or Asian cultures. And she said that it's been very difficult for her, especially with sports, because she comes from a different background, a different upbringing. And most of the people she works with in the tech industry, she works at LinkedIn, are also from other countries. And so it's been hard for her to digest American sports, in particular baseball, and because it's complicated, right? Yeah. Not just the game, but like how to sign up for Little League, how does the process work? Like what is going on? And it just really made me step back and say, damn, dude, like, I mean, I think we take for granted how much access we've had to information. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is that what I told her is I said, look, the next time you're at T-ball, Little League, anything, walk up to someone who looks like they are aware and just ask them questions. And I guarantee you, they will sit down with you and they will thoroughly explain anything you want, because the heart of an American, I think, the heart of people should be to share information, to level each other up. And so that's the exact example I'm trying to use with like what we're doing at Train Hard. Like we have a knowledge base. Many of our members do. We want to share that with the community to help level them up.
For sure. And the one thing I would add
Ukrainian side note, sorry.
The one thing I would add to what you were saying before too is like, I'll openly acknowledge that our training programs maybe are not our nutrition protocol. I think that applies to everyone. Like, might not be either everyone's cup of tea, or it might not be like where you're at. Like, I also want to make sure that like our message, I think our training programs are great. I think that that's what everyone should do. I think that we have incredibly, incredibly smart people behind the programming. I mean, Dennis is an encyclopedia of knowledge. MDB is involved. I'm involved.
I mean, like Dennis is an encyclopedia.
Yeah, 100%. Having said that, like if this inspires you to like go to your local CrossFit gym and start,
great.
If it inspires you to like start taking, like yoga, Pilates, like whatever, like everything is better than not doing something. And I just want to make sure that that's abundantly clear when we put out this message. Obviously, I want people on our app. Obviously, I think it's an incredible solution, especially if you have like a garage gym and you're like just looking for programming you can do on your own. But there's a reason that me and you both, well, I mean, you specifically, like started with brick and mortar gyms. Like those places are great. Like if you have that ability, do it. Just start moving, like take responsibility. And the fact that like, no matter what circumstances got you to the point you are now, it's like, so what? What are you going to do next? And just doing some action and not putting fitness or nutrition on this super high pedestal of like, it needs to be 6 days a week of working out and like no sugar, no booze, no nothing. Like, no, just start making small changes. And I hope that the message we put out inspires people to do that. If that's through our app, great. If that's through something else, also great.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Jiu-Jitsu.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. But the never zero mindset, I think, is a key concept to share here. It's like, dude, it's just do something. That's it. Just do something. I mean, that's the takeaway. I was talking to Danny about it this morning. He came over to come and train. I was just sharing with him how important that never zero mindset is. I said, oh, so why the app? I mean, I think we're talking about the app. I mean, I wrote down, why the app? It's like, dude, the app is going to be the game changer. The app is the next phase. It's like, it's 20 years in the making, man. It's 20 years in the making. I got into the fitness space. I started CrossFit 2005, 2006, and here we are in 2025, 20 years later. And I feel like this is the solution that I think many people need. So it's exciting.
You mentioned It wasn't the last
Ukrainian?
podcast no, it wasn't the last podcast we recorded, but it was the last one that came out. Had a whole bunch of comments. The dual ones. It's the one where you're
my favorite one. My favorite one was that guy. This was my favorite one.
Bring something up here.
He goes, Gabe. What was it? Basically, it was like, Gabe. Hang on, let me find it. Gabe says, strong opinions, loosely held. Jason, basically explains why, things should change. Gabe doesn't change opinion or whatever it was.
Yeah, because there were no compelling arguments. I didn't have a chance to go back and listen, but I know that me and you.
Here it is. Gabe, I have strong beliefs, loosely held. Jason makes compelling arguments against many ideas Gabe has. Gabe, nah, I still think I'm right. Even Jason gave up in the end, knew it was fruitless. That's great.
Do you remember what your compelling arguments were?
I mean, I got to go back and listen. I just think I like the fact that we could have, I think we were having a difference of opinion on the provide piece. And this one gentleman, Patrick, writes in, on providing, I'm a stay-at-home dad and I'm struggling with valuing what I provide, which isn't financial. Home Dad Chat is an amazing resource. So I actually looked up Home Dad Chat and I wanted to reach out to someone like that to get on the show to talk about, like, as a stay-at-home dad, what types of things have they seen to provide fulfillment to men who want to provide? I'm very interested in, like, what they've seen be very successful there. And I think that you're going to see some huge carryovers, right? Like how a guy outside the home does this, a guy in the home does this, and they both provide fulfillment because they feel purpose.
For sure. Yeah. And again, like, there's no one size fits all for any of that stuff. And if I insinuated that in any way, like, I mean, I usually get in front of that stuff, and that's not what I mean at all. But I do think that as men, our purpose is to provide, period. And I think that for most men, that ends up being financial because it's kind of like where our skill set lies. But I had someone DM me who basically was saying that both him and his wife work, and she's the top earner. And that, this whole idea of providing financially is super complicated and nuanced. And I had a really good conversation with him on Instagram, and I want to share what I wrote back to him, that is, because what I appreciate about anyone that I disagree with is being able to have a good conversation where I get to more clearly think about what it is that my position is, because I have someone kind of like poking holes in the things that I'm saying. So here's what I wrote to him. If I had to boil down my personal opinion on provide, I think that as a man, being a provider means taking as much responsibility as possible, because it's impossible to match what's required of a mother, regardless of whether she stays home or continues to build a career. For most men, we take on that responsibility by providing financially, but it can't end there. And that's even if you are providing financially. I think you have to provide stability, safety, encouragement, compassion, a masculine role model for your kids, so on and so forth. And there's no one size fits all to any of this. But again, I think the most important piece of provide for me is that you have to constantly, I think, as a man, take on as much responsibility as you can, because from the moment that you and your wife gets pregnant, you can never match what is required of her, period. You never will. And we're constantly fighting this battle that we're just never going to win. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. And that's what I deeply believe is our role as provider, is knowing that, like, what she does is incredible. She creates the life that brings into this world. And it's our job to take on as much as we can. Change the diaper, take the kids when you can, provide financially, sure. And I know that kind of gets caught up as like, that's the thing and the only thing. But, we've talked about this in the past. There's a lot of men out there that are probably bringing in a really sizable paycheck. But if they're not present, if they're not supporting their wife, if they're not being that, like, rock for the family, it almost doesn't even matter. So anyway, I really appreciate the people that reached out.
I like that comment. That was I haven't heard you say it like that before. That was pretty good.
But here's the thing. It's me having to very clearly think about what I even mean and like how I want to say it and how I want to clearly explain it to someone that in the beginning, maybe we didn't see eye to eye about it, is what I think is incredibly helpful about having disagreements, because I would never have gotten to that, which I think is how I clearly think about it, if I hadn't been like challenged or like, hey, like, I think you got this wrong, or hey, here's my vantage point. So the reason I wanted to share that is share that that's my opinion. But I think that that's where I also like told you, like, I know we disagree about stuff and I want us to have those conversations because I think it just makes me better. And I hope it makes you better because it's like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Or I think the reason that maybe we're disagreeing is because I'm not clearly even articulating how I feel about this. And it makes me kind of think and like, okay, this is what I think. And now I feel good about it. And I think that, you know, we generally agree about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good, I mean, dude, yeah, you're right about I mean, you know, we have Ava's Kitchen this weekend and I was thinking about, you know, like the words to describe like the dedication and effort that Ashley's put into Ava's Kitchen. It's hard to put into words the dedication. You know what I mean? It's hard to describe. And you could say this about obviously being a mother and whatnot, but I'm talking about specifically about this, right? 8 years, dedication, every year, consistency. Like, dude, I was telling you, like, dude, after 8 years, I mean, 8 years of anything is hard. Like running a business is hard. Like hosting a charity event, it's hard. Like doing anything, it's hard because for a year or two, you could do it because you're like inspired, motivated. But then after that, like it's consistency and it's getting the people on the team. It's having a clear message. It's all the things that we're talking about in business. But yeah, anyways, I'm trying to find the right words to summarize like, you know, just all the work and effort that goes into this weekend. And, you know, to be able to raise a lot of money for kids fighting cancer is awesome. So I'll be thinking about those words. So people stay tuned. We'll be sharing it on the podcast. I'm still noodling on it.
I think the more, and again, you've been in this so much longer than I have, specifically with Ashley, like you met Ashley so young. It's like you start to realize and the reverence that I have for like how much Ariel does, even though she, you know, she doesn't, you know, she has like a couple like nutrition clients here and there, but you know, I am the breadwinner of our family. But the amount that she does, like the role that she plays, both in like the house, the kids, but also like the support that I get that allows me to, you know, go out and work and do the thing. The support that I get for like the things I do. Like we were just talking about the Hyrox race. Like that was my weekend, my race. She's there. She's cheering me on. She's watching the kids. Like even before the race, she's like, you know, go up to the hotel, get off your feet. Like it's just a constant, like no questions asked support that I know you've talked about this, that you get from Ashley, that yes, it isn't a paycheck that comes in every 2 weeks, but it's like, it's like 20 times, it's a million times more valuable than just the fact that like I can pay a couple bills or pay our mortgage. Like that's the minimum. And I think that like once, and I hope that more men and husbands have that same mentality out there, because once you like really, really think about, you know, how much they're pulling on their side of the team, like it becomes clear to me that like, dude, I gotta do more.
Yeah, you gotta
do more.
You gotta do more.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, I hope guys could just have that mentality, right? And also if you find the right person, we've talked about this countless times, right? That person can unlock so much. Dude, we got a solid men's club coming up. For those of you, dude, I've had a lot of questions about this. I want to just make sure that this probably isn't going to be a long enough answer to this, but I've been asked so many times because we had a social media post go viral about how to start a men's club. And I've guided them to an episode that we did about a year ago, to a Q&A episode. So if you look up Khalipa and Men's Club, it'll pop up on our channel where we talk about it. But long story short, it's always early. It's always outdoors. And we use sandbags, text some friends, invite some people, meet up somewhere and go do something hard. And I think that I've had at least 50 people direct message me and then tons of people comment saying, I want to start one of these. It's like, dude, don't want to do it. Just do it. Like it's one of those things you don't know until you do it. So go out there, text a group of friends, email a group of friends, be like, hey, we're going to meet at this place at this time. And it might just be you. And if it's just you, dude, do it. Like, that's fine. Just go get after it. And eventually people will gravitate towards it, but set the energy, keep the vibes right. AMRAPs and EMOMs, so that everybody does things together and they don't feel like anybody's being shunned or judged, but any fitness level should be accessible because we want everybody to be on the path and then slowly develop over time. So don't overthink it. Just go do it. It's like a Nike commercial.
Just go do it. Yeah. And it's funny because that applies for so many things. I've seen the questions come in on, you know, how do I start one of these? And I've probably done this in the past with all, I know I've done this in the past with all sorts of stuff, but the resistance to take action often manifests itself as like making things more complicated than they need to be and feeling like you have to go out there and like figure out the right way to do it, when like it's always just do it. Like, you want to clean up your nutrition, you probably know one habit that isn't helping you that you can change tomorrow that will help. But you feel like you need to go out and find the perfect diet, the perfect, like system, the perfect whatever to get started, where you could have 3 months ago changed that one little habit and you would be so far ahead of where you are now. Obviously, same thing with fitness, right?
Yeah.
Like finding the perfect training program, the perfect split to gain muscle. Like,
it's like not letting perfect get in the way of good, It's
100%.
But the men's club in particular, dude, like the amount of messages I've gotten about people who want to start one, and I'm just like, why are you even messaging me? Like, just go do it. Like, I mean, obviously I'm supportive and I write back and I share with them.
For sure.
Like,
because I think sometimes, like the purpose that you can serve in that respect too is like almost giving them the permission to like do what they already know. So, I mean, I know you get back to everyone and that's the value there, but it doesn't change the fact that like, there's no like playbook or like thing to do. It's like, send out a text.
Send out a text and just meet people and train hard. I do think the one big piece is that if you are going to host a meetup of guys, is always make sure that everybody feels, and this is, someone might say this sounds soft. It's not soft, included. Meaning like, dude, we're going to be busting our ass, but busting your ass is relative to the individual. And I don't care if you're 300 pounds or jacked. It doesn't matter to me. I just want you doing X amount of push-ups in a given minute. Meaning like, hey guys, we're going to do, we're going to do push-ups for 1 minute. I don't care if you get 5. I don't care if you get 50. But like, that's the mentality, I think, to men's club that's so important, because if someone comes one time, dude, it probably took them so much effort. It probably took them a lot to show up. And if they have one bad experience, they may never come back. And so that's what I think about on a regular basis. Like, dude, some of these guys who are now on the fringe, right? Because we've been doing this for 2 years. So now they're getting invited by a friend. Over and over and over again, they get invited by a friend. Finally, they show up, right? And maybe in your case, if you're starting a new club, this isn't the same thing. But over time, this happens. Dude, the friend's asked 50 times. Finally, the friend comes and he feels like he's being on blast. No bueno. Like, can't do it. Like we got to make sure that person has such a great experience that we become a weekly anchor for that individual and they can use our programs during the week. That's like the heart of what I'm trying to accomplish, because the guys who are jacked, the guys who are fit and capable, they're going to continue to be fit and capable. But the guys right there on that corner, dude, when they make that corner, it is beautiful to watch. And you could do that through a men's club, or you could do that through our app. You could do that in a variety of ways.
Yeah. And you've seen it happen, which is cool. So you understand the power of that. Dude, I think that like with many things, the other place where I can see stuff like this, like fizzling out, is if you do have a small group for 2 weeks, or then week 3 comes and, it's not even week 1 that you end up being alone, but it's week 3, just because it just so happened you have a small group, everyone has something going on that week. It's so easy for that to then be the like, it's not.
It's like, fizzled. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's where, and again, this applies to everything. You just have to kind of stick through it and realize that, things take a while to snowball, whether that's, going back to nutrition, fitness, starting a business, like there's going to be a point where it seems like
it's not linear growth.
This doesn't make sense. And you can either stick to it or, you can kind of give up and go back to the safe thing. And I'm not saying you always should stick through it irresponsibly, but that I think is the key differentiator between the people that end up making it and the people that not. I mentioned this on the podcast we had with Andre Cruz, but man, like this really hit me. Like the difference in people that are incredibly successful and not, like, dude, it's not intelligence. It's not like creativity. It's not.
No, it's just consistency.
That's it, man.
Yeah. And when they're in the dirt, just like stay consistent with it. Because it's easy when you're in the dirt to just be like, I mean, using the men's club is a great example, by the way. Like your first week, you get like 5 guys. Next week, you get like 4 guys. Then all of a sudden, the third week, you get 2. And you start thinking to yourself, damn, dude, maybe it's me. Maybe it's not this. Maybe it's this. You start having self-doubt. And then all of a sudden, you stop it. But maybe people were just on vacation. Maybe they were busy. And then boom, all of a sudden, it just starts to build. I mean, using our men's club as an example, we average, I'd say on average, we have 30 guys, right? Sometimes we have 50. Sometimes, well, like we rarely get under 20. But the point I'm trying to make is that if I have a day that's 20, is it me? I don't know. Is it the day? Is it the time? Is it spring break. Like, there's so many factors that go through your mind, but you got to just keep past it, because then 3 weeks later, you have the biggest group you've ever seen, and it just gives you that jolt that you need.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to see it on Saturday. I love coming in and being able to witness it. I don't usually get to actually work out with you guys, but this Saturday, man, we're in.
Yeah, we're in. So Saturday, big group. By the time this airs, that'll already happen. But stay tuned to your local communities, right? If you've been inspired by the men's club, go out there, go create your own group. Use our app during the week. Crush it with your buddies on the weekends, and try and create this shoulder-to-shoulder mentality. We're going to be having a great time at Ava's Kitchen. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff, but make sure, if you're getting value from this podcast, the best way to engage with us is really, we used to say the newsletter. I think that's a great place, or podcast comments, which are both great places. But I think the best place moving forward is really going to be this group that we're creating through the Train Hard app. So make sure to check out all the podcast show notes. We'll have all the, relative information for where we're at on that journey. And we hope to see you guys there. So Gabe, welcome to San Jose, California.
Dude, I love visiting. The weather's literally always obnoxiously perfect.
Dude, whenever Gabe comes into town, it's always perfect. All right, guys, keep training hard. See you guys again next week.